I wanted to make a couple of quieter points about the Welsh Farmers' protests. And I should say out front that I come from farming stock. I've raised a farmer who works in the dairy industry. So I have a kind of personal and vested interest in the fact that I think the countryside should always come first. But I will say this. Firstly, the name of the scheme that's being forced by the Welsh government, Sustainable Farming Scheme. As soon as governments, politicians, anybody in any kind of power calls something a certain thing, you know what it's saying. So they call it sustainable farming, right? Sustainable oh, how lovely, a bit of sustainable farming. What it actually is called is restrictive farming practices. It's a whole bunch of rules. If I could get the rule book that they're planning to impose on farmers and show it to you, it's a rule book like this, full of things that farmers will no longer be able to do. It's basically cramping farmers into an ever smaller, ever less productive space. And that's what this scheme is. So please bear no attention whatsoever to the label sustainable farming. And you'll know, if you know anything about the way the world works right now, that this is being controlled at a global level. World Economic Forum and others have decided that we will not have the right to eat meat or grow our own food or control our own food supplies. And so money will be coming down at government levels from globalists who are pushing these plans through. So that's where all of this is coming from. It's basically getting rid of farmers. That's the ultimate outcome. The second thing that's really important is to question who gave politicians the right. Who gave politicians the right to start restricting farmers? We came from farming. We were birthed out of farming before all of this nonsense that man's created because of its big brain and inability to occupy itself. We used to just farm the land. Who gave politicians, the right to tell farmers what to do, to restrict their practices? If you take the American way set out by the founding fathers, governments are there to protect your right to life, to protect your right to freedom, to protect the freedoms of your life, and to ensure your pursuit of happiness. Those are the only three reasons government is allowed to get involved in your life. Otherwise, Americans have the right to shoot you in the face. What gave tiny politicians in Wales the right to tell farmers who are struggling what to do? No one. No one. Democracy, of the people, by the people, for the people. No one gave these pathetic little pen pushers the right to tell farmers how to farm their land that they have been doing for decades, usually passed down from their fathers and their grandfathers. And I tell you this, if you took one of those pathetic little politicians, and I would love to do this, and got them to graft on a farm for, I don't know, let's call it a month, they wouldn't last. And I don't just mean that because they didn't choose to do farming. I mean because it's so bloody hard and relentless. 5 a.m. till whatever o'clock, no clock off time, no 4:30, oh, start packing up my desk so I can be out by 5:15. No cushy little warm office to work in. It is proper grafting, and none of us, unless you're a farmer, will understand that. The other point is that the policies that they're trying to push on these farmers are ridiculous. Even if you buy into climate change or the need to sequester carbon, the idea that you're just going to take away 10% of farmers' land to put trees on it, that farmers have to dig scrapes in their lands in order that ponds can be there, in order that wildlife or frogs might be able to go and have a bath, another 10% of their land for other bits of wildlife. Farmers have such greater priorities right now than buggering about finding a bath for a tadpole or trying to plant a few more trees. And that's at the same time as councils are tearing down trees all over the place. Look what they just did in Plymouth, where they removed every tree in the town centre. Why is it our farmers suddenly have to be planting when our councillors are pulling these things down? I mean, there's just so many levels to this beyond the headline. And there's a couple more points I wanted to make. The first one is that it doesn't stop here. So you have sustainable farming scheme, 10% of land for woods, and we want 10% of land for wildlife, and you have to kind of, give it over to wildlife. What are we going to eat in the future? What, a butterfly? What, rip the wings off and just suck the body like a wiggly worm? What? It doesn't end there. It doesn't stop there. This is take an inch. This is back in, this comes out of the playbook, a communist playbook. You go for a metre, you take an inch, or you go for a metre, you take a centimetre. You try for the metre, you take 2 centimetres. You keep pushing big, take a little bit. So this year, in order for you to get the farm subsidies that you have every right to have, the bribe is, being held hostage, you give us 10% for wood, 10% for friggin' butterflies. Next year, what do you think it's going to be? Or the year after, or in 2035? And suddenly 50% of farms have to be wooded or made up of tadpole ponds. So it never stops. This is just the start of the curtailing of farmers' ability to even exist. And look at all the farms shutting down. Farmers aren't out there lording it up, sitting in Mauritius. They're grafting 20 hours out of 24 to try and get by. And the other point I wanted to make is that in my heart, farmers are the best of us. And I spend a lot of time, as some of you will know, on South African farms where it's very extreme. South African farmers are down to below 3%. They're being actively hunted off their land by gangs. And I've spent time with them as they're hunted. And expropriation without compensation. You want to take a look at where this ends up. South Africa was there 5 years ago, 10 years ago, where expropriation without compensation, big words, means we're going to take your land and give you nothing for it. And then they hand it over to idiots who don't know how to farm, and within a moment it's reduced to nothingness, unproductive land that doesn't grow anything, that can't feed anyone. And at a time when families can't afford food in a supermarket, how on earth does it make any sense to take away our ability to make food in the most honest way that we know? And I just wanted to add, if you're still with me, that I also personally, I am so supportive of strong men and strong women, and farmers to me, and everyone involved in agriculture and everyone that is a part of it, are exactly the sort of people we need and are going to need. Sorry, that's my dog shaking this. They're impatient to go walking. Are exactly the kind of people we need and will need as we go forwards into what's about to happen when it all kicks off. And if ever you're in trouble, or ever you need something, or something goes wrong in your life, you should count yourself very lucky if it's a farmer that shows up, because he, she will always have the ability to fix it, because that's what they do every single day. Find a problem, fix the problem. And that's why it's also so important to me that we look after our farmers. So to all farmers in South Wales, I'm not one of you, I don't work as hard as you, but I wish you all the best. To anybody supporting farmers, please do get out, support them any way you can. Go and make them a cup of tea. And to the evil bastards trying to force this through, I just want to say at a very personal level that is unhelpful. I think you're really pathetic. The only thing you can push is a pen. And you could not even hold a candle up to the magnificent men and women that work the land